now tell me that I should remove the head. So when I removed the head, I gave him the knife. It was the one that separated the remaining one.
It was a normal Wednesday afternoon in Osogbo, the capital city of Osun State, Nigeria. Police officers were doing their regular patrol work at a market when something made them stop a red SUV. Behind the wheel sat a 38-year-old man named Ajibade Rasheed. The officers had no idea they were about to uncover one of the most disturbing cases in the city's history. As the officers approached the vehicle for a routine check, something felt wrong. There were two men inside the car that day, but the events that would soon unfold would shock everyone. When the police began their search of the vehicle, they made a terrifying discovery. Inside the car was the severed head of an old woman, but the horror did not stop there. The officers found more body parts carefully stored in the vehicle. There was the woman's private parts, her liver, her intestines, two severed palms, her lungs, and even her blood had been collected. The gruesome cargo had been traveling from Agba, a quiet community in Borikpe local government area, heading toward Osogbo. The woman's body had been torn apart, and now her remains were being transported like common goods in the back of a car. In the chaos of the discovery, something unexpected happened. The second man, who had been sitting in the car, suddenly made a run for it. He escaped from the scene before the officers could stop him, disappearing into the crowded market. The police were then left with only one suspect in custody, which was Ajibade Rasheed. They had the driver, but his accomplice had gotten away. A manhunt began immediately, but for now, all attention turned to the man they had in their possession. At the police headquarters in Osogbo, the officers faced the challenge of finding out who this poor woman was, where she had been killed, and why her body had been chopped into pieces. When it was time for Rasheed to speak, he had a story ready. He claimed he was an Afa, a spiritual healer, and also worked as an herbalist. According to Rasheed, he was not the killer. Instead, he said another man had come to him, asking for help. This man, who went by the name Afa Olorungbebe, had approached Rasheed with a specific request. He wanted to perform a money ritual, a dark ceremony that some people believe can bring instant wealth. Rasheed told the police that when Olorungbebe came to him, he had explained what materials would be needed for such a ritual. The list was horrifying. It included a fresh human head, the private parts of a woman, and other body parts. According to Rasheed, Olorungbebe had promised to get these materials himself. Rasheed claimed he was simply waiting to receive them. There was another detail Rasheed wanted everyone to know. He said he had been observing the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, fasting during the daylight hours. According to his statement, Olorungbebe had brought the fresh human head and other body parts to him that very day. His plan, he claimed, was to store these horrible items at his place until Ramadan ended, and only then would he use them for the money ritual as requested. He insisted the car belonged to his brother and kept repeating that he had not killed the woman. Everything, according to him, had been done by Olorungbebe, but the police were not satisfied with this story. They had questions that needed answers. If Rasheed was indeed telling the truth, then who was this mysterious Olorungbebe? Where was he now? And most importantly, who was the woman whose body had been so brutally destroyed? The investigation was just beginning, and what they would discover next was beyond anyone's darkest imagination. The police went to work, tracking down the man Rasheed had named, and they eventually found him. His real name was Isiaka Akonde, though he was known in the community as Afa Olorungbebe. When the officers arrested him, they prepared themselves for even more disturbing revelations. During questioning, Akonde began to confess. He described in detail how they had cut apart the woman's body. His accomplice explained that he had been told to remove the head. He admitted giving someone else a knife to separate other parts. As Akonde spoke, he admitted that he knew he had sinned against God and then asked for forgiveness. But his confession was only the beginning of the truth. The police decided to visit Akonde's home in Borikpe local government area, but nothing could have prepared them for what they found there. The building looked ordinary from the outside, but inside was a scene of pure horror. The house was actually a place where human beings were kept like animals and locked away from the world. Behind the walls of that building, the police found people living in chains. Afa Olorungbebe had kept at least 12 human beings captive in his very own house. These were vulnerable people, individuals who were believed to be mentally unstable. Akonde had supposedly been running a mental health facility, a place where families sent their loved ones for care, not knowing that they were sending them to where they would serve as ingredients for dark rituals. Among the victims in captivity was a woman carrying Akonde's baby. The conditions were so bad that it was hard to believe human beings had been living there, but perhaps the most heartbreaking discovery was yet to come. The woman, whose head and body parts had been found in the vehicle, was not a stranger to Akonde. She had been one of his patients, one of the people who had been placed in his care, trusting that he would help her. The truth was even darker than anyone imagined. It was discovered that this woman had once been pregnant with Akonde's child. She had been under his control, living in his facility, and he had taken advantage of her vulnerable state. And when the time came that he and Rasheed needed body parts for their money ritual, she ultimately became their victim. Akonde took the police to another location on his property. There, he showed them where the rest of the woman's body had been disposed of. They had cut her open, taken what they needed, and buried the remains. The police documented everything, gathering proof that would be used in court to ensure justice would be served. As the investigation continued, the police worked to identify all the victims who had been rescued from the building. The 12 people who had been found alive were in terrible condition. Many showed signs of long-term abuse and neglect. They had been living in chains, treated worse than animals, all while their families believed they were receiving proper care for their mental health conditions. The state government of Osun stepped in to help. Officials explained that the rescued victims would be taken into government care for rehabilitation. A spokesperson for the government said they would work to determine which victims were mentally stable and which one needed more intensive treatment. For those who were found to be mentally stable, efforts would be made to reunite them with their families. The government officials stressed that families with mentally unstable relatives should seek proper medical help through recognized hospitals and clinics, not through people who claim to have spiritual solutions. Meanwhile, the legal process began for Rasheed and Akonde. The two men faced serious criminal charges. In Nigeria, murder carries severe penalties. The way they had killed their victims by dismembering her body for use in rituals made their crime even more serious. They were also facing charges related to the kidnapping and illegal detention of the 12 people found in chains at Akonde's facility. Under Nigerian law, anyone convicted of murder can face the death penalty. The additional charges of kidnapping, illegal detention, and abuse of vulnerable persons would add many more years to any sentence they might receive. The evidence against them was overwhelming. There were the body parts found in the car, Akonde's own confession about how they had cut up their victim, the 12 witnesses rescued from his facility, and the physical evidence found at his property where the body had been buried. What began as a routine traffic stop had uncovered a house of horrors, exposed a fake healer who had been abusing vulnerable people, and also solved a murder that showed the darkest side of human nature. The woman who died had been mentally ill, pregnant by her captor, and ultimately killed by the very people who claimed they could help others through spiritual means. What are your thoughts on this horrifying case? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories.